We are going to talk about the sports card market crash. We're going to talk about Blake's opinion on it, my opinion on it. We're going to tie it in. I have my 5 points of panic that are my observations. The 5 things that, in my opinion, would have to happen for us to go into a full fledged crash. And we're going to talk about those 5 things, and everybody can kind of make their own assumption on whether they think they're truly happening or not. Blake will give his thoughts and tie it in to what happened with the Dallas Card Show this weekend, and we're going to wrap that in with, cryptocurrencies, some of the stock market stuff, and some of the other stuff that is going on. So, going to be really interesting. So, Blake, you want me to start and us talk about the market crash, or do you want to start with the Dallas Card Show and us segue from the Dallas Card Show?
No, why don't you start us off, because I think what I have to bring in this conversation will I want to bounce this theory that I've heard off you after you roll out your points and see if you find anything um see if you find this theory to be true or not, and how that ties in with kind of what you're thinking, because it's an angle that I haven't heard on sports card shows yet, but it made a lot of sense to me. So I'll be interested to get your take on it.
Sure, absolutely. And we would love to have everybody in the chat. Let me just jump right in. I think the sports card market is crashing, just to be honest. I have been talking about it for 2 months now. Several months ago, we were making fun of the Gary V versus Vegas Dave. Vegas Dave saying the world's ending, Gary V saying I'm putting all my money in. If you recall, I basically said that I don't like Vegas Dave, but I didn't think he was necessarily all wrong. I also did not believe that Gary V was actually sinking all of his money into cards, although he keeps hyping it up. I'm going to tell you right now, I think we're crashing. I don't know that we're crashing in the sense that we're going to hit rock bottom or anything of that nature, but I don't think we're coming out of this one. We're not rebounding like cryptos, which I'll tie that in just a minute. Here's why I want to back up what I'm saying, okay? I have my 5 panic buttons. Each one of the panic buttons, in my opinion, needs to be hit in order for us to be in free fall on the card market. And I honestly think that once I give you my 5 points and my panic buttons, you can make your own assumption as to whether you think that those panic buttons have been hit, whether you agree that those panic buttons have any relevance, and make your own assumption at the end of it by kind of deducing from everything we talk about tonight whether you truly think the card market's in free fall or whether you think we're just in a right sizing moment. And if those are different things, to be honest. So let's talk about point number 1, panic button number 1, okay? The first sign when we talked about it a few months ago was the idea that market prices were kind of all over the place. We went over, PSA closing, and we said then that that could have a major impact on the market with them closing, but more importantly with them flooding the market with all the cards that they were going to try to push out in a short time frame. Well, I can tell you now, I feel like I was not wrong, but I wasn't 100% correct. Here's why I want to say it that way. I think that PSA closing had a much bigger impact than I thought it would on the sports card market, okay? I did not anticipate them closing having the biggest impact on the market prior to them releasing a ton of cards out into the market. But the long-term wait with PSA and the PSA gold standard of grading and value, in my opinion, that was part of what was holding up the card market in a lot of ways. Because cards took so long, because cards were able to sit in long-term value before lots of cards flooded the market, and also because people were looking to buy cards to submit to get that payday, I think that was a driving factor in the market. Now that we've been, basically a month and a half, 2 months now that PSA has been closed, I think the people jumping in to search for cards, to buy them grade them, and flip them has died off. Do I think that they're going to stay out of the market? No. But the question is, does the market come back to a point where it's worth them getting back in when that time comes? That we can talk about in a minute. So, first point of panic. Hindsight is 2020. It's PSA closing their doors to new submissions. I think that that's a big, big deal because while it doesn't necessarily affect graded card prices the way that we thought it might, it absolutely affected the mind of the people buying in to get the quick flip. It took some of the hype out of card collecting. And that air coming out of the sales, while it's not sinking the ship, it definitely meant that the ship is a little bit more adrift out in the middle of the ocean than it was kind of steamboating forward, okay? Okay, so that's my first point of panic. That one...
Can I address that real quick? Can I address your first point? Okay, so I agree with you. I think that PSA closing its doors has negatively impacted the momentum that the sports card market had. I think that the flip side of that is that there are a lot of people, including myself, that have a lot of money still in PSA queues. And I feel like I made a mistake because now that the market has dipped, I have not leveraged myself to be in a position where I can buy on the dip. I bought most of those cards when they were high, 3-4 months ago, when there probably wasn't that much room for them to go up. And now I am, and I feel like I'm mentioning this because I feel like there's a lot of people that might be in the same boat. I am waiting on PSA to give me my cards back so that I can then go flip those to have cash to buy more cards. So people getting their PSA cards back might have a good impact on the sports card hobby because right now I feel like the cash flow has been sucked out of the hobby in general. Like not everywhere, but a lot of cash has been pulled out or is sitting at PSA. And we need PSA to clear that queue so that we get cash going again. And I kind of heard a little bit of that just watching some of the videos. I heard a little bit of that there's not as many, there's a lot more sellers right now than there are buyers at the Dallas Card Show. And that is, if you were in a position to buy right now, then you're in a good spot. Because this is the time that if you really truly think that you want to make good money, the dip is when you buy. Everyone knows that. Buy low, sell high, right? It's basic
assuming
sales
we're in a
economics. Dip. And I'm going to be one that thinks that we are in a dip because I've seen some of the indexes from before November and after. So the card market did the same thing after the bubble, the NBA bubble playoff, and it crashed. And then a couple months later, like November, December, it shot right back up. I am under the opinion that we're in a dip, not in a crash. Right. Or that, even just consider that even right now, sports cards are still worth way more than they were a year ago.
Sure.
Way more.
Yeah.
So to me, that's still a dip. If we get below a year ago mark, that to me is a crash.
Right. Well, and I get what you're saying. Here's my one counterpoint to what you're saying there, though. Literally, there is no difference between PSA right now and PSA 5 months ago, other than you just can't send in new cards. Getting cards back any sooner, you're not getting them back any sooner. They're not flowing out faster. It's right. It's literally no different than it was 5, 6, 7 months ago when you were waiting those long periods of time. You're still waiting on them. We've submitted back in September. It's just now going to get here coming Monday, right? So to me, while I understand that idea of cash flow, that's a general business principle. I don't think that has anything to do with the hype in the market because the problem is the PSA ebb and flow hasn't changed any from where it has been for 6 months. It's the same ebb and flow. People submitted, you waited 6, 7, 5 billion months, whatever it was, to get your cards back, depending on how much you paid, and overshot time frames, got them back, then he tried to sell them, but that hasn't changed. In my opinion, though, and I get what you're saying, because you kind of went down that rabbit trail on talking about the the other aspects of why you think it's a dip. I understand the buying on the dip, and I am all about buying on the dip. Let me tell you, though, in my opinion here, I am definitely in the place of not wanting to purchase on this dip because I'm not convinced it's just a dip. If it is just a dip, it is the time to buy. If it is a full crash, then you need to conserve your money. Because the idea of buying in the dip is that, the bell curve idea comes up and from the opposite angle, and then we're going to go up to a spike somewhere where everything's going to go up and you're going to make your quick money. I don't think we're there. I think we're in a right sizing. And a right sizing is not a dip, because the ebb and flow of the card market that we've seen over the last couple of years has been based on a growing amount of hype. When one person stopped collecting cards or got out or money didn't allow for it or they lost interest, two people got in because the hype in the flip game was real. The two people coming in is not the same. Now it's two people going out and one person coming in. And I don't even know that we're one person coming in, because, again, the flip game was the idea of sending to PSA, getting graded cards. You're breaking to try to get good cards and then send them to PSA to get graded, to then flip them to make some money. Or you're trying to do, we talk about personal collection all the time, and I still stand by, as long as your PC is full of cards that you don't care what they're worth, you enjoy their value no matter what the dollar figure attached to it is, you can't lose. No matter whether we're in a dip, a crash, or a spike, doesn't matter. You can't lose with that.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the investing side, because there's so many people that are just in it for the dollar. When you're looking at it from that point, I think that the PSA not allowing submissions, if it had been a month, 6 weeks, or whatever, and they had opened back up or made an announcement about opening back up, I think we'd still have a little bit of hype. It wouldn't be the full steam ahead, but I think we'd still have some hype in the industry, especially going into that Dallas card show. But none of the other graders have had the hype. All of them have been bogged down. None of them have shown in the PSA absence that they have been able to pick up the slack as far as being the gold standard in the market or being equally valuable. We're seeing that most of those slabs are still under value on PSA. So with all that being said, I think that the wind is out of that sail.